Hey Nats Chat, Tim Shovers here. Just so you know, about a half hour after we finished taping, reports came out on social media that the Nationals were calling up Brady House and Daylen Lile and sending down Robert Hassell III and Jose Tena. In the final segment of this episode, I'll come back on and chime in with what this means, as it looks like that Brady House will make his debut on Monday night against the Rockies. Plenty to discuss in this episode after the Nationals lost their 8th in a row.
For those who live in Navy Yard, did you know you can order Walters online for pickup? Visit waltersdc.com, click on menus, and then push the order online button so it's ready when you get there to take back home with you.
A massage chair might seem a bit extravagant, especially these days. 8 different settings, adjustable intensity, plus it's heated, and it just feels so good. Yes, a massage chair might seem a bit extravagant, but when it can come with a car, suddenly it seems quite practical. The all-new 2025 Volkswagen Tiguan, packed with premium features like available massaging front seats, it only feels extravagant.
And a swing and a drive deep down the left field line toward the corner. It's going, and it is gone. A home run off a changeup. Dane Myers with his 4th home run of the year. He's had a big series. Now 6 hits and 10 times up in the 3 games. And it took all of just 3 pitches for the Marlins to regain the lead here in the 2nd inning. It's Miami 2 and Washington 1. 2 balls, 2 strikes. The lead at first for Tena, held by Wagaman. Tarnock delivers and call swings, chops it back to the pitcher. Throw to second wide, but held. Throw to first. Double play and the game's over. The throw almost too wide, held by Edwards, the second baseman. They get a 1-4-3 double play. The game and the series over. The Marlins win all 3 here in Washington.
And welcome to Nats Chat, along with MASNsports.com Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman, who is at Nationals Park. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. Sunday was Father's Day. We hope that all of the dads listening had enjoyable Father's Days. Sunday also is June 15th, marking exactly 1 month until the 2025 MLB All-Star Game, which will take place on July 15th. Will take place at Truist Park in Georgia. What the state of the Nats season a month from now will be is anyone's guess, but the state of the Nats season right now is bad, quite bad. Sunday afternoon, a 3-1 loss to the National League East worst Miami Marlins at Nationals Park to complete a 3-game sweep. The indignity of being swept at home by the lowly Marlins has become reality. The Nats now have lost 8 consecutive games. The Nats now are at a new low point in MLB's 2025 regular season. 11 games below 500, 30-41 with a run differential of minus 63. The good news is, if you're a coach on the Nats, it's not on you because it's never on coaching. Never on coaching. So there you go. You can find us on X at Nats_chat. You can find us on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. You can email the show, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. It is amazing how things have played out here for the offense. The Nats, since scoring at least 9 runs in each of 4 consecutive games, May 28th through May 31st, have totaled just 31 runs in 13 games. The offense going cold coincides precisely with the calendar turning from May to June. I don't know why that is, but that is. It's crazy how that is, Mark.
It's crazy, and it's also, it would be one thing if it had been from the end of that road trip and then you start on the new one. No, it included the final game in Arizona before they came home. So it's not even like there was an obvious cutoff point where something dramatic changed. The only thing that changed was the calendar, which shouldn't make any difference for them as a team. It has been dramatic, though. It is hard to believe that this same group of players, same group of hitters, was so good for those 4 days out west and really for a little bit prior to that point. It wasn't like that came out of absolutely nowhere. But for those 4 days, that they were so good on the road against good teams, okay? The Mariners and Diamondbacks are quality teams that they did that to. And to think that's the same team that we're watching right now that just got swept by the Marlins, that has lost 8 in a row, that can't even cobble together a couple of runs. It's all it would have taken to win this game. Score 3 runs against the Marlins, and you can win the game and salvage a game in the series. And they couldn't even do that. It's kind of hard to comprehend, to be honest, that those two things could both be true. What this looked like 2 weeks ago versus what it looks like today.
So next up for the Nats on this 7-game homestand on which we thought the Nats would get fat and happy, but so far has been a disaster, is the worst team in the majors this season and one of the worst teams that you'll ever see, the Colorado Rockies, who are like beyond a level of worst in the majors. They are comically bad. They are historically bad. You know, to me, and I know this may sound funny at this point, this still does profile as a series in which the Nats offense could get right because the Rockies are just that bad. But of course, who knows what is going to happen over these 4 games? The Nats need to author a 4-game sweep just to salvage a winning homestand. Think about that given the expectations going into this homestand. So yeah, like on the surface, you would think the Nats can get fat and happy against the lowly Rockies, but who knows what's going to go down off what we just saw over these 3 games against the Marlins.
You would have said that they should get fat and happy against the Marlins. And how did that work out? And by the way, the Rockies recently swept the Marlins in a series, like the high point of their season to date. So I wouldn't assume anything right now. I wouldn't count on anything. Maybe deep down, that's the problem, is that in their minds, they thought they were going to have a cakewalk this weekend against Miami. And it certainly wasn't that from their standpoint. So maybe there's something psychological to it as well. I don't know, except to say this. You mentioned that they could sweep the series just to get a winning homestand. I was thinking about it in these terms. Even if they sweep the Rockies and then say they went and swept the Dodgers out in LA, which is in all likelihood not going to happen. But even if they did, it'd be a 7-game winning streak. That'd be great. It would only get them back to 4 games under 500. They'd still have ground to make up. That's the kind of hole they've dug for themselves here. And I think that's the most discouraging part of this, is that even when they've had moments that it wasn't going great, even when they kind of were inconsistent and just couldn't get on that surge that we've been talking about for so long, they still were hovering within reach of the 500 mark. What these last 8 days have done is remove them from that equation entirely to now where a surge, even if it was coming, wouldn't even get them to where they need to be. They need like a double surge to get there. And have they given us any evidence, any sign that that's coming? No. And so I think that's really the discouraging part of this, is if they had just held their own, even if they weren't playing well, just found a way to win a game here or there, then you'd say, okay, there's still a shot. But when you lose 8 in a row and lose it in the way they have, and particularly what they did this weekend against the team that they just faced, it is hard to find reasons for optimism right now. And I know that could change. They could have a great week against Colorado, and maybe we're talking about something totally different at the end of the week. But right now, it's hard to think of things to be optimistic about.
So there has been a lot of fallout to the Davey Martinez post-game press conference comments of Saturday afternoon. Davey now infamously saying it's never on coaching. Davey got asked about these comments during his pregame session with reporters on Sunday. We want to play for you what Davey had to say, and then we'll react to what Davey had to say.
They're great. I talked to a lot of them already. You know, they say that, hey, you know, it wasn't on them, right? And my comments was nothing about them. They know that. You know, they read through it, and like I said, I talked to them about it, and they're all good. They want to win today. The biggest thing is we want to win today. The clubhouse is about as good as it's ever been. I mean, these guys are stuck together. We went through this before. You know, we've lost 7 or 8 before, but we got to stick together. You know, all of us, 26 players, all the coaches, staff, everybody.
So you say it's not. You say it wasn't about them.
It was never about them, right? I said I never mentioned anything about players, right? I appreciate those players. I played. I understand how hard this game is. They know that. You know, so it's a difficult game. You know, and these guys are out there trying hard. Well, we got to do little things. You know, as I always talk about. You know, we start doing little things, we'll start winning some of these games.
So if it was about them, like, who was it about? Who was it about?
They asked me about the coaches. You put the blame on the coaches. No, I don't.
When you say that the clubhouse is as good as it's ever been, why is that?
Because these guys are stuck together. I mean, they've stuck together through thick and thin. They know that we have an opportunity to win every day, and I love that about them. Like I said, if they didn't believe in that, the comebacks like we've had, you know, even though we fell short, you wouldn't see that, you know. And these guys play hard for 27 outs.
Okay, so Davey Martinez right there saying that he and his comments during his post-game press conference on Saturday afternoon, quote, never mentioned anything about players, end quote. I don't know if he forgot what he said. I don't know if he thinks we all forgot what he said. But Davey Martinez, during that postgame presser on Saturday afternoon, literally said the following: "It's always been about the players, always."
It's always been about the players, always, you know.
Okay, he literally said that. That is a direct quote from the postgame presser on Saturday afternoon. What did you think of Davey saying that to you guys during that pregame session on Sunday, that it was not about the players at all? He never even mentioned the players when he, in fact, absolutely mentioned the players on Saturday afternoon.
I think this was another example, and unfortunately another bad example, of him not really being able to articulate what I think he's trying to say. I'm not going to try to be a mind reader here, but I do believe that he is trying to say that his point of all this was, you don't point fingers at any individual or individual group that we win and lose as a team. The problem is he can't just come out and say that, and for whatever reason has not been able to articulate that. To me, the disappointing part of that is, after going through what he went through Saturday and seeing the ramifications and the reaction to it, you come in on Sunday and you know you're probably going to get something having to do with the same subject again. Or even if you don't, you can even come right out and say, hey, before we take any questions, I want to say something. You had all night, all morning to prepare something and make sure you knew exactly what you wanted to say, how you wanted to frame it. And instead, he got caught up in his own words again and was backtracking ultimately from what he said. And I think that's a big mistake on his part. Again, I think I understand the point he's trying to make here, but he has not in any way done a good job of articulating that, which is a shame from somebody who we think of as a good communicator. But there's a difference between communicating in conversation with players and with other people and being up in front of cameras and speaking publicly on the record and saying things in a way that it comes across the way that they need to come across.
Davey Martinez, conservatively speaking, does 400 plus sessions with reporters when you consider spring training and the regular season. He speaks that often. Pre-game press conference, post-game press conference, pre-game session, post-game session. It's amazing how often MLB managers speak to reporters. That this is really the first time in his tenure that he has bungled something, I think is a credit to him. And I think this actually makes me appreciate that even more, that this is the first real screw-up Davey has ever had in terms of his public comments. And listen, we all make mistakes. We all say things that we regret. We all misspeak. I don't think this makes him a bad person. I think what he said on Saturday afternoon is completely forgivable, but you got to come out and make the amends. And it didn't really feel like he did that on Sunday. And man, I can't get over the local reaction and national reaction to those comments on Saturday afternoon. They were everywhere. Saturday evening, Saturday night, Sunday morning. I know X isn't the greatest measure of things, but all over X, you were seeing the Davey comments, and not just from, Nationals fans or Nationals media members, but from national baseball media outlets harping on what Davey had to say, mocking Davey for what he said. This, to me, was the biggest bungling of a press conference by a Nationals manager since Dusty Baker in October 2017. The famous Steven Strasburg, he has dealing with what was it, the mildew?
Mold in the hotel.
That Steven Strasburg, that he was dealing with the mold in the hotel. And remember how big of a deal that became.
A lot of my team is kind of under the weather with the change of weather and the air conditioning in the hotel and the air conditioning here. And this is the time of the year, for mold around Chicago. I think it's mold because I have it too. So,
This reminded me of that in terms of the overwhelming reaction to what Davey Martinez had to say. And it also stood out from the standpoint of Davey so often says so little of note in his dealings with you guys. And he does that on purpose. And I think it's smart that he does that. He never digs himself into any kind of holes. And this just was such a departure from that, what he had to say in that post-game presser on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, I think you can understand how he was caught off guard Saturday. And maybe, as I described the other day, there was a little ramp up and things haven't been going well. And finally got to a point that he, quote unquote, snapped by Davey Martinez standards, which is not, maybe the standards of a lot of other professional managers and coaches and things. But you would think, I would want to believe that seeing the reaction to it, that you would then come in the next day and try to control the message right up front. And I don't think it would have taken much. I think he could have walked in and said, hey, listen, I want to make something clear. I know you heard what I had to say yesterday, but I want to say this. I've got all the faith in my players. I have stood behind their backs. I've been their number one supporter since the day I took this job, no matter who's been in that clubhouse. And I think if you asked anybody who's ever played for me, they would say that about me. I also believe in my coaches. I would never put it on them when things go wrong. They work as hard as anybody. I'm going to support everyone who is with this team and tell you that when we win as a team. And when we lose as a team. And by the way, I'll also tell you that includes me. That if we've got an 8-game losing streak, then I need to be better at my job. We talked yesterday about how very few major league managers say that. That's much more of an NFL coach kind of thing to say. I think it would have been appropriate here to say something like that. It's a missed opportunity, of course, to sort of clean up what happened the day before. And he could have controlled that by coming right in and saying it. And so the fact that he waited until he was asked about it and still wound up kind of flustered and not coming through with an answer that was satisfactory and only prolonged this somewhat doesn't speak, well of him in this situation. Do I think it speaks to a larger problem or larger issue? Not necessarily. I don't think these last 48 hours are the determining factor in whatever happens to Davey Martinez or his coaching staff. Doesn't mean that there couldn't be considerations of changes to come, because when you lose 8 in a row and you're 11 games under 500 for a team that was not supposed to be in that position, you have to evaluate all that. I don't necessarily think it's a direct reflection of what he has said in a couple of press conference answers, but he certainly could have helped his cause by coming in Sunday with a more prepared response that would have addressed this in a way that I think was more satisfactory.
Hey, Al Galdi here for Window Nation. We're midway through the year, and for many people, that means summer vacation is coming up. Will your windows keep your home protected while you're away? Save yourself the headache of coming home to a potential break-in by replacing your windows today with Window Nation windows. Right now, when you buy 4 windows, you get 4 windows free, plus you get a free exterior door when you purchase a house full of windows. And on top of that, you won't have to put any money down, pay any interest, or deal with any monthly payments for 24 months. Call 866-90NATION or visit windownation.com and tell Window Nation that you want the deal that you heard about from Al Galdi on the Nats Chat podcast. In this economy, what Window Nation is offering right now is a great deal. Your electricity bill is another good indicator of how well your windows are working, especially with summer temperatures here to stay. Lucky for you, Window Nation offers top quality, energy efficient vinyl windows built to withstand the sun's heat and keep your home cool. And did I mention that Window Nation windows come with a lifetime warranty? Don't miss your chance to protect and upgrade your home with Window Nation windows. Buy 4 windows, get 4 windows free now through June 30th. And remember, you won't pay a thing for 24 months. Call 866-90NATION or visit windownation.com. That's 866-90NATION or windownation.com. And tell Window Nation that you want the deal that you heard about from Al Galdi on the Nats Chat podcast.
And now Perez to the belt. He kicks, he fires, and Garcia swings and grounds one right side. Runner breaks for the plate. Run will score. The throw to first by Edwards in time to get Garcia for the second out of the inning, but he picks up his 29th run batted of the year. Tied the game as Cole scores. Abrams over to third with 2 out, and Josh Bell coming up. It's now Miami 1 and Washington 1.
Well, the famous Dusty Baker mold presser was followed by one of the great wins in Nationals history, Game 4 at the Cubs in that NLDS, Steven Strasburg tossing an absolute classic. Perhaps the Nats will respond well to this bungling of a presser by Davey Martinez, but the response did not get off to a good start with the 3-1 loss to the Marlins on Sunday afternoon. The Nats in this game, 1 run, 6 hits, did work 4 more walks. So actually 10 walks drawn by the Nats over the final 2 games of this series. But that don't mean much when you're getting swept by the Marlins. The Nats in this game 0 for 9 with runners in scoring position. The 6 hits, 2 doubles, and 4 singles. We had one of the doubles by CJ Abrams, who was the Nats starting shortstop and number 3 batter in this game. He went 1 for 3 with a double. So we did see Davey Martinez try something different with this lineup. What'd you think about Abrams going from the number 1 spot to the number 3 spot for this game?
It was worth a shot. There's nothing wrong with trying that. He's been one of their more productive hitters here of late. And the idea would be, well, maybe get him up there with guys already on base so you can drive them in. And I mean, it sort of worked to an extent in the first inning. Alex Call draws a leadoff walk. Then after James Wood flies out, Abrams doubles to right. And that didn't score the run, but it set him up to then score on the RBI ground up by Luis Garcia. So, there was that. Call got on base a couple of times. I think the real problem in the end, and this was always the fear when you do something like this, is you get to the ninth inning and there was not that sustained rally that came up just short like we saw the day before or so many other times here. But you did have a man on with one out, and now Alex Call's coming up with the game on the line, and he grounds into a game-ending double play. And who's next up? James Wood, and then CJ Abrams. And so Alex Call is ultimately deciding the game for you and not the better hitter. So that's the fear of when you do something like this. You never know exactly where you're going to be come the ninth inning, but you'd rather have your better hitters up. But I understood the philosophy behind it. It didn't necessarily backfire spectacularly. I don't think that's the reason they lost the game. They lost the game because, as you said, they went 0 for 9 with runners in scoring position. A whole lot of others did not come through when they did give themselves opportunities.
No, they did not. We had Nathaniel Lowe as the Nats starting first baseman and number 6 batter going 0 for 3 with a walk. We had Robert Hassell III as the Nats starting center fielder and number 7 batter going 0 for 4 with a strikeout. You had no Nationals player in this game with more than one hit. I mentioned the 4 walks, so good to see that. But, the extra base hits have dried up. The homers have dried up. 71 games now, 66 home runs. And that's for a good long while. We're averaging a homer per game, even maybe a little more than that. And now it's beneath that. Now it's fewer homers than games played. And that's a problem. That's a real issue here with what's happening. So again, maybe against the porous Rockies pitching staff, we can see some bombs and we can see this team get into a good place offensively. But right now, you just don't know what to think. I mean, it's funny with this series. Usually when you get swept, you say, okay, well, that team looked like the better team. I'm in no way convinced the Marlins are better than the Nats. The Marlins were not impressive in this series. The Nats were just very unimpressive.
Yeah, this was all about the Nationals not hitting. I mean, I guess Friday night you'd say, but it was all mostly late at the end of the game. There was every opportunity to win, not just this game, but this series, and they just did not come through in big spots. And I think the telling moment of it all, here's what I'm looking at on the bottom of the 5th inning, one of several opportunities that they had. They've got 1st and 3rd with 1 out in the 5th. They've got Josh Bell at the plate. We know that he's been struggling. We know that he hits the ball on the ground when he goes bad. You got to avoid a double play there no matter what. So what do? You put Luis Garcia in motion. You have him take off from first base, stay out of the double play. And that's exactly what they did. It was the right call. It's exactly what you do. And what happened? Josh Bell still grounded into a double play, 5-4-3. I mean, if that didn't just encapsulate everything for you right there, I don't know what else will. That, to me, was so emblematic of what's going on with this team. They're trying. They have the right idea of what they're trying to do. They just can't actually execute in the moment. And Josh Bell is high on the list of guys who have not executed. That nice little hot streak out west, it's gone. He's back to who he was again. And you do, as you move into mid-June, have to start wondering about the clock ticking on that and how far can they go with Josh Bell as their DH.
Not that Jacob Young is having a great season, but he did not start a single game in this series. He only played in 1 game in the series. What'd you make of that?
I'm surprised, but by the same token, I think it's an acknowledgement on their part that he really wasn't playing well prior to the injury. I think they're going to see a left-hander for the Rockies on Monday, so I think you'll probably see him. I think you'll probably see Andres Chaparro in the lineup for that. That's the idea, that against lefties they have some different guys. But, I mean, it's pretty telling to me that even though he's been here all along, Alex Call was not a regular player there for a good stretch, and all of a sudden he is starting every day for them, against lefties and against righties, and in this case was hitting leadoff. And I think that's a reflection of Jacob Young not really being viewed at the moment as worthy of playing every day. And the other one, Robert Hassell is not doing a lot for them either. He is not necessarily looking as big league ready as we thought he maybe looked during that first week here, not putting together the quality of at-bats. He finally drew his first walk on Saturday. I'll be curious to see how this goes moving forward. We're still not at a point where Dylan Cruz is doing baseball activities, so there's not a big move to be made there coming up here soon. But for all that talk of, they have the outfield depth, they can overcome the injuries, they're really hurting right now. Hassell's not contributing, Young is not playing, and Alex Call is what they're left with in right field, and probably put into a more prominent position than he really should be.
And We have said that multiple times during Alex Call's time with the Nats over these last few years. That is not the first time that statement has been made. The Nats pitching in this 3-1 loss to the Marlins on Sunday afternoon was perfectly acceptable. MacKenzie Gore was the Nats starting pitcher. He is the ace. The hope was that he would prove to be the stopper when it came to what had been a 7-game losing streak. Gore was not at his best, but he still was good. 2 runs in 6 innings, 5 strikeouts, 1 walk. He gave up 8 hits, which were a homer, a double, and 6 singles. He threw 97 pitches, 60 strikes versus 37 balls. Now, you didn't know what to think with how Gore's outing started. He allowed a run in each of the first 2 innings, but he did then toss 4 scoreless innings. So was he, lights out, 5-star level MacKenzie Gore? No, but 2 runs in 6 innings should be good enough to win, and the Nats obviously did not.
He had to grind his way through this one. There's no other way about it. And he admitted that after the fact. But it's another encouraging sign that on a day when he clearly wasn't at his best, when he wasn't getting the kinds of swings and misses, he was not locating, bounced a lot of breaking balls in the dirt, and the Marlins were not helping him out much in that regard. And he still found a way. And he got better as it went on. He started attacking hitters with more fastballs later in the game. And I mean, he's at 77 pitches through 4 innings. And I'm thinking they're probably just going to get him through 5 and that's it. And to his credit, he had a quick top of the 5th, came back, completed the 6th, and was still under 100 pitches. So he was averaging almost 20 per inning through the 4th, and he wound up at 97 through 6. So that's a good job of finishing by him. And at the end of the day, you look up and say that's his 10th quality start in 15 outings this season. And they haven't all been dominant. Some of them have been, but it continues to impress me that on the nights when he isn't dominant, he's still finding a way to be effective and give them some length. There's been one start this year, that weird one in Baltimore where he gave up a bunch of hits, didn't give up that much damage. That's the only time he hasn't gone at least 5 innings this season, and he's gone 6 more often than not. That's a real credit to him that he's finding a way to still be effective, even if he's not necessarily got his A game going on that day.
Yeah, I mentioned the All-Star game being a month away. MacKenzie Gore 100% should be an All-Star. James Wood should be too, but MacKenzie Gore absolutely should be. Gore now for this regular season, 15 starts, ERA 2.89, WHIP 115, 119 strikeouts, number 1 in the majors. Strikeouts per 9 innings, 12.26, number 1 among all qualified pitchers in the majors.
Life as a small business owner. Everything is your problem, and there aren't enough hours in the day. That's where LinkedIn Jobs, and by proxy Nats Chat, are here to help. For those crucial hires that you absolutely can't whiff on, turn to LinkedIn Jobs. Simply post your job, and LinkedIn will take it from there, making sure it gets in front of the properly qualified candidates who are searching themselves. Find out why more than 2.5 million small business owners have turned to LinkedIn Jobs to grow their staff. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/natschat. That's linkedin.com/natschat to post your jobs for free. LinkedIn.com/NATSCHAT. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, fellas. I need you to stop what you're doing and go download Prize Picks if you haven't already. Because once you download Prize Picks and use code BACKYARD, you get $50 on us once you place the first $5 lineup. And in that lineup, the reason I love it so much, because all you have to do is place more or less on whatever player you want to rock with that night. And you can do it for as many players or as little players as you like. And it doesn't matter if I'm watching basketball, hockey, golf, baseball, esports, doesn't matter. I can put them all in my lineup. The reason I like firing on Prize Picks so much during the summer is because I travel all the time, and Prize Picks is available in more than 28 states, including California, which I love summers in California. So I can fire on Prize Picks with all my friends and swear out the games with them. And it doesn't matter what we're watching, we always get to enjoy the game a little bit more. And lastly, fellas, there's also a special going on during basketball playoffs. Every time you do a $5 3-pick basketball flex play during the playoffs, you automatically get entered in the Prize Picks sweepstakes for courtside tickets to the finals. So download the app today and use code BACKYARD to get $50 instantly after you play the first $5 lineup. That's code BACKYARD to get $50 instantly after you play the first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game.
The kick and the pitch. Swinging a high fly ball, center field. Hassell has to move back on it. Now coming in, still coming in, makes the catch. Tagging at third, Fortes trying to score. The throw comes in high. Caught on the fly by Ruiz. Throw to first. Lopez back there safely. So a run scores on the sac fly. The other runners hold. It's 3-1 Miami.
The Nats bullpen in this game on Sunday afternoon, you had 3 Nats relievers combining to allow 1 run in 3 innings. So Ryan Ludis, top of the 7th, allowed a run on 2 bunt singles, a walk, and an RBI sac fly. And he did then issue another walk, but Jackson Rutledge, a scoreless top of the 8th. Cole Henry, perfect top of the 9th with 2 strikeouts. You give up 3 runs, you should win, especially against a team as bad as the Marlins. And that the Nats did not win this game, that the offense remains in this rut. And with no real fix in sight, it's not like the Nats have been hammered by injury this season. Yes, Dylan Cruz is out, and perhaps when he comes back, that'll help. But as we know, Cruz wasn't exactly thriving prior to the injury. But this isn't really one of these deals where you say, well, they're missing all these key regulars in the lineup. Like, this is more about who the regulars are and just the lack of production that the Nats are getting from these regulars.
Right. There's not a whole lot that can be done at this point, as we have discussed. And I think that's why internally they keep preaching the idea of, we have to turn this around. There's no savior coming that's going to fix everything for them. Now, there are some moves they can make. We've discussed they may not be complete game changers, but somebody like Brady House eventually has got to come up, and I've got to believe that would be a boost in some way. My bold move, I do not believe this is actually going to happen. But as I was contemplating this, watching another weak offensive effort from this team, my bold idea is this. You call up Brady House, he's your third baseman. You move Jose Tena and Ahmed Rosario to second base and have them split that job the way they are currently at third. That's going to improve your second base defense. And you make Luis Garcia your DH along with Andres Chaparro. And unfortunately, that means the end of the road for Josh Bell, or maybe you find a way to keep him on the bench to some extent. I don't believe that's going to happen, but you'd get the kid up here, maybe inject some life into the offense. You put Tena and Rosario at a position that they're probably more comfortable at anyways, and would believe that would improve your defense at second base regardless. And maybe it gives Luis Garcia, even if it's just a short-term thing, not even that has to be long-term, but it's a chance just to focus on his hitting. We've talked about how bad the defense has been, how much that's hurting them. He's been all right offensively. It's a wild ride with him because he swings at everything, but he's still finding a way to make some decent contact, and one of their more productive hitters. Give him maybe a few weeks just to try focusing on hitting alone and be the DH and see what happens with that. If I was going to make a bold move, that's the move I would make. Again, I'd be very surprised if we saw all of that. We may see parts of some of that. I'd be surprised if we saw all of that right now, though.
I got to tell you, I like every bit of that. I think a lot of that makes a lot of sense. Garcia is third among qualified Nats in OPS. Wood is number 1, 907. Abrams second, 819. Garcia is third, 702. Not that that's spectacular, but, that is number 3. I think that makes a ton of sense. I was looking at the latest Garcia defensive numbers. He is dead last among every position player in the majors in defensive run save for this regular season. Look at the games through Saturday, minus 14. Every position on the diamond. He's dead last. That's how bad he has been defensively here this year. All right, happier thoughts, because I think we need these right now. Former Nats catcher Wilson Ramos, the Buffalo, he on Sunday morning signed a ceremonial one-day contract with the Nats and officially retired as a member of the Nats. The Nats got Wilson Ramos via one of the great trades by Mike Rizzo, July 29th, 2010. The Nats traded closer Matt Capps to the Minnesota Twins, and brought back to the Nats was Ramos. Ramos played for the Nats in the 2010 through 2016 regular seasons. He over 578 regular season games for the Nats, accumulated 10.6 wins above replacement for Baseball Reference. That works out to a 162-game average of 2.97 WAR. So he was a 3-win catcher for the Nats in terms of his 162-game average. Did miss a lot of time due to injury. We get that. Did struggle when it came to catching throws. We get that. But he was a good offensive catcher. You look at the Nats 2016 season, Ramos in that 2016 regular season, 3.1 WAR per Baseball Reference, and Nats, of course, made the playoffs in the 2016 season. I'll ask you this, and I'll get the joke out of the way, okay? I know the list of candidates for this, not exactly a mile long, but if I ask you best catcher for the Nats since the franchise came to D.C., is the answer Wilson Ramos?
Yes. I was just going to say, if I'm putting together my all-time Nats team, Wilson Ramos is my starting catcher on that team. And yeah, there are some flaws that you're going to have to deal with there, but offensively, you knew what he could do for you. And the thing about him defensively, and it's always been hard to quantify this, but I think you have to look at the track record there. I think he was an excellent game caller and working with pitchers. Let's consider he's caught all 3 no-hitters in Nationals history, plus a 20 strikeout game from Max Scherzer. He was working with some elite pitchers who, by all accounts, liked working with him, and he helped them get the most out of them. So I think there's something said for that. He actually said in his press conference on Sunday that he was asked, like, what are your favorite memories from here? He mentioned all of those things, all the things in which he was behind the plate. It was nothing about his offensive exploits or anything he did with the bat to help the team. It was entirely what he did as a catcher. I think that was pretty telling from him. The real shame with Wilson Ramos, 2 ACL injuries, absolutely killer injuries. One of them was early in the 2012 season. Who knows what would have happened if he had been there throughout? Could he have made a difference in that playoff series and if they'd gone any further? And really the one that was the killer was 2016, because as you just pointed out, he had his best season that year. He was going into free agency. And 1 week before the end of the season, Ryan Zimmerman makes a throw to the plate that's high. The field was wet. He jumps up to catch it. He comes down. He slips on the plate and blows out his knee. So he misses the playoffs, another 5-game series that they lost. Probably could have helped them in some regard. And goes into free agency now with an ACL tear. And if I remember right, the Rays actually gave him a 2-year deal, knowing he was going to miss most of that first year. And then he came back. He wound up coming back as an all-star in 2018, got a huge ovation at Nats Park when he came back. This is somebody who went through a lot in his career on and off the field. A lot of devastating things happened to him. And he is one of the strongest people I've ever known in this sport. Always stayed positive. Always well-liked, looked on the bright side of everything, appreciated everything that he had. It was really good to see him and see him get an opportunity to officially retire with the team for whom he had his most success.
One of the great nicknames in Nationals history, the Buffalo. And has any Nat ever looked his position more than Wilson Ramos looked his position? He looks like a catcher. Even at this presser, you on X posted a photo of him at the presser. He still looks like a catcher. Like, he's a big dude. He just comes off like exactly the kind of presence that you historically, traditionally think about when you talk about a catcher. So congrats to Wilson Ramos on a very nice run with the Nats, and we wish him all the best in retirement. So, yes, next up for the Nats, a 4-game series against the MLB worst Colorado Rockies at Nationals Park. Game 1, Monday evening, 6:45. Jake Irvin will be the Nats starting pitcher. Game 2, Tuesday evening, 6:45. Michael Soroka will be the Nats starting pitcher. Game 3, Wednesday evening, 6:45. Mitchell Parker will be the Nats starting pitcher. And Game 4, Thursday afternoon at 1:05. Trevor Williams will be the Nats starting pitcher. We will hold on tight, and we will see what transpires over these next 4 days. A chance for the Nats to get right, but off what we just witnessed, who knows what is going to go down.
Ramsey fires. House swings and belts it deep out to left center. Almora's running back onto the warning track. It's out near the fence, and that is off the wall. Lile around third, heading for home. He's going to score on a booming double from Brady House to tie the game at 2.
All right, unusual close here on Nat Chat, but as I said, the reports about House getting called up to the major leagues to make his debut, along with Daylen Lile coming back up to Washington, came out after we taped on this Father's Day evening. Hope those who celebrated had a fantastic Father's Day, my first one itself, and I got to say, it lives up to the billing. Now to the moves. Brady House and Daylen Lile are up. Robert Hassell III and Jose Tena are down. I'll get to House last. That, of course, is most important. To the guys who are going back to Rochester, Robert Hassell III, in his brief time with the Nationals, he had 78 at-bats and his OPS, 497. You heard Mark talk about his inability to draw walks. I'm sure that's something that drew the Nationals' eye. He's going back to Rochester. He was called up for the Nationals on May 21st. So Robert Hassell III, for reference sake, when he was with Rochester earlier this year, he had an OPS of 742 in roughly the first 2 months of the season. Will he get called back up to DC later this year? Honestly, don't know. I think it's worth keeping an eye on Hassell III's actual performance every day with Rochester, but of course, all it takes is 1 or 2 injuries in the outfield, and back up to DC he'll go. Jose Tena, the more interesting one here in this instance, because he's had so many starts at third base this year. I think this simply comes down to procedural move between him and Ahmed Rosario. Rosario was signed as a veteran free agent. Tena still has options, so I think it makes more sense for him to go go down there. Here are his numbers so far this year. A 690 OPS, so nothing terrible, but nothing that's going to blow your socks off. For reference on Tena, he was acquired in the Lane Thomas trade with Cleveland just before the trade deadline last year in late July. He spent about 10 days in Rochester and then been with the Nationals ever since August 10th of last year, but he returns to Rochester. Now to the guys coming back up. Daylen Lile, he's had a very interesting year. It began in AA Harrisburg. He went up to AAA, and then not too long after, just about 3 weeks after getting assigned to AAA, he's called up to DC on May 23rd, back to AAA on June 6th. So about a 10-day stay there, and Lile coming back to the Nationals, as I said, really had an interesting year. If you look at his stats so far, 880 OPS in the minor leagues. He had a 612 OPS in 31 at-bats with the Nationals. To the big one, Brady House. If you've been listening to this podcast, you know I've been calling for it for a little over a week now. I thought that before last homestand on June 3rd against the Cubs seemed like a perfect time to call him up. I thought that they should maybe call him up before the series against the Mets, or maybe on Friday, coming off a 5-game losing streak to start a new homestand. Whatever. House is here now, a little bit later than I would have preferred, as I said, but I agree with the decision by the Nationals on Sunday night to call up House. This team is desperate to have something shaken up. This team is desperate to have any sort of excitement whatsoever. And of course, the offense has been putrid this June, so House theoretically could help. House has been tearing it up this year at AAA. And his OPS is at 872, 13 homers. He's hitting over 300. And for more reference on House, he was drafted 4 years ago in 2021, a first-round selection for the Nationals, and basically, if you will, was the first cog of the rebuild, but it was known that it was going to be a while before House made his way up to D.C. because he was a high school guy. He played shortstop at high school in Winder, Georgia, and then they moved him over to third base. So this has been a long time coming. If you've been listening to this podcast, you've been hearing periodic mentions of Brady House. I mean, this is really 4 years in the making. So this also, as I will point out, is the second to last move of the rebuild, if you will. I know Kate Cavalli had a brief stay with the Nationals, literally brief, 1 game. But once Cavalli gets called up in early July, that's it for this version of the rebuild. And we don't know until he faced Major League pitching. Can he handle the curveball or not? Can he handle the big league curve? But I'm happy that Mike Rizzo made this decision. Call up House, facing a terrible pitching staff, the worst team in all of Major League Baseball, the Colorado Rockies, a 4-game set. And if this series doesn't go well, boy, a lot could happen before the team gets on the plane to head out to Dodger Stadium on Friday night. Thank you to everyone for listening. Appreciate you tuning in. Bit of an unusual show, but you understand, as I said, that the House and Lile news came out about a half hour after we wrapped up taping. We'll be back with you, of course, for every game Follow the Nets Rockies series, especially after Brady House's debut on Monday night. Talk soon, everyone.
I'm very happy for this opportunity. The team gave it to me to announce my retire. And, I got good memories here in D.C., played with a bunch of guys, have good memory with you guys. So I'm very excited for this moment. I was waiting for this to do it, and now I'm very happy to finally do it. So very excited.